Welcome to Movies That Matter, the podcast about recent films going above and beyond the call of box office returns to boldly explore a social issue affecting people's lives. I'm Nicole Finari, and with me today is...
Lexy.
Welcome, Lexy. First time on the show.
Thank you.
What movie are we going to overanalyze this week?
Marvel's first female-led superhero movie.
Written and directed by Anna Boden and Raya Flick, Brie Larson stars as Carol Danvers in Captain Marvel. Set in 1995, the story follows Danvers as she becomes Captain Marvel after Earth is caught in the center of a galactic conflict between two alien worlds, featuring a de-aged Samuel L. Jackson and Clark Gregg, as well as Jude Law and Ben Mendelsohn.
That de-aging technology was actually really good.
It's creepy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good because it's creepy.
Yeah.
Or it's creepy because it's good, I meant to say. So, what did you think of the movie?
It was fine.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't bad, but it wasn't anything special, in my opinion.
Okay.
Maybe special isn't the right word, but I don't want to... They're two different movies, so I don't want to compare the two too much, but it definitely wasn't Wonder Woman.
No, it was not. And we are going to totally compare the two, so...
Because they are two different characters, two different universes.
Two different tones, two different styles.
Yeah.
There's a lot that's really different about them. So I admittedly was, dreading going into this movie. You may have noticed, loyal fans, that we don't do much superhero stuff in general, and I don't particularly like it. And the sameness of Marvel is deadening me.
What do you mean the sameness?
Just the formula, all the cheap nostalgic hits. I will say for this one, this is maybe one of the few origin movies where they didn't have the mandatory montage where she awkwardly learns how to use her powers. So that was cool.
Yeah, I guess unless you count the beginning. But it's not really the same. It's not the same montage.
So I just, I'm so tired of these movies. They all seem the same. They follow a pretty formula. They have the same kind of, humor that's not too transgressive.
I disagree a little bit, because I do think particular ones have very individual styles. Like Thor Ragnarok recently had a very different style than other previous Thor movies and also other movies, but that's a little off topic.
No, I mean, it's not off topic, actually, and I'm glad you brought that up, which is why I wanted to do this with you, is you know the whole cinematic universe way better than I do. I don't watch these movies because I felt like I saw two, so then seen them all. I will say, the previews of this movie, the trailers looked terrible. And
I was hyped from the trailers.
And I was not. I thought they looked really stupid, and I thought Alison Brie do this all the time.
Oh, you mean Brie Larson?
Brie Larson. So sorry, Brie Larson. You are two separate people, but the Alison Brie Larson thing just gets me every time. I thought Brie Larson did a really good job. I thought she wasn't going to.
Oh, really? Yeah. I totally disagree.
Oh, you didn't like her at all?
Well, no, it's not that I didn't like her at all, but so... there were definitely parts of the movie where I didn't think this was true, but overall, she seemed very flat. And I couldn't tell if that was because she is a good actress. Mm-hmm. The most recent thing I saw her in was, I guess, Kong, and then also Free Fire.
Okay.
And I thought she was great. I mean, Kong overall was meh, but I thought she was good. I thought overall she was sort of flat, and in other reviews I've heard the term wooden, or...
Yeah. I thought that was intentional.
Okay. So. Yeah, because she is sort of, even though she's technically not an alien, she is an alien. Or she starts the movie from a more alien perspective, and so that could be why she's more wooden, because she's out of her element on Earth, technically.
Well, yeah, and so it's one of the contrasts to Wonder Woman, where she's like, ooh, a baby. They're very hard. I think they were doubling down on trying to make her not feminine, not be very I'm a fighter pilot, I'm totally a dude, I don't have messy emotions.
Yeah, and they were definitely hammering that point from the beginning. With
I think
Jude Law's character saying, don't use your emotions. Think of everything.
That was the whole worst part of the movie. Like, that was where, like, we started off on a bad note because I'm like, oh, it's like every athlete superhero movie ever where they tell you not to use your emotion. And then you find out that your emotion is, in fact, your greatest strength. And I was like, making gagging noises and motions over here, which you can't see. It was just so hackneyed. I was like, this is so bad. But I liked her performance. I did think, though, the suit. I don't know what that suit was made of, but she couldn't walk in it.
No, every time she ran, it looked kind of off.
Yeah. She would walk. She had a very weird stiff gait in that suit. She didn't wear it comfortably. Now, on the one hand, I appreciate that she was fully clothed.
Yeah, because especially I don't read the comics, but I did try and do research for this on the comics. And when Miss Marvel first came around, she was definitely not fully clothed, and so it's good that they made the transition in the comics and for the movie that she is fully clothed.
Yes, I appreciate clothing. It was one of my biggest complaints about Wonder Woman is she's saving the world with her ass hanging out of her skirt. But this one I was like, something was up with it. She looked really stiff and like it was hard to walk in.
Marvel does tend to do a lot of humor, which I think can definitely add to their movies with particular characters. This movie sort of switched between being funny, with her and Samuel L. Jackson, to being more serious, and it didn't feel as seamless as other Marvel movies, in my opinion. So that was also another criticism.
And so the friends I saw it with, one of them made the comment like, well, her scenes with Samuel L. Jackson, like, they had such good rapport. I was like, yeah, but that's all Samuel L. Jackson. You could have put a cardboard box next to Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah. And you'd be like, oh, that's such good rapport. Like,
no, that's true.
That's all him. He just can act next to anybody.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of what adds to my opinion of Brie Larson's acting is that, Samuel L. Jackson was definitely, he's great. Yeah. He's a good actor.
So is Ben Mendelsohn, but I will admit to, the funniest...
Oh, yeah, he's the boss. Who's actually a Skrull.
Yeah. So we have spoilers, don't worry.
Yeah.
So I will admit to, a very American-centric view of the rest of the galaxy, in that anytime an alien has an Australian accent, it sounds weird. And I'm like, why would an alien have it? I'm like, why would an alien have an English accent or an American accent? No reason. Yeah. But every time I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. It does throw me off, which is very unfortunate. But I thought he did a good job. I thought... the cat did a good job until they used a CGI cat, and then it was really obvious when it was real cat, not real cat, real cat, not real cat.
And then so again, not having read the comics, I thought the Flurkin aspect of the how the cat has the tentacles and everything came out of left field, but it is an actual canon character in the comics, so if you knew that going in, it makes a lot more sense.
Got it. I mean, I knew the cat wasn't going to be a cat.
Oh, I was just kind of like, oh, it's a cat. It's
no, fine. I thought it was going to be Marvel. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But I knew it wasn't going to be a cat.
Yeah, I knew the cat was a canon character, but I didn't know about the Flurkin aspect, and I just sort of went along for the ride.
I appreciated the 90s shout out by naming the cat Goose.
Oh, yeah.
So there were a lot of 90s nostalgia Easter eggs in there, which...
and her pulling the DVD with the right stuff and...
Yep. Yeah. Good catch there. And just, making fun of Blockbuster and Radio Shack and slow motions and the whole soundtrack. So interestingly, I saw that the soundtrack, the score of the movie was the first female scripted score.
The composer is female?
The composer is a woman. She lobbied really hard to get the job. She's contributed pieces of scores to other Marvel movies.
But never the main person.
Yeah, okay. Which I was like, oh, that's unfortunate. I really like the score. I thought it was intentionally old school.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get what you're trying to do, but I still don't like it.
My first note is lots of themes related to feminism and sort of the idea of being told you're not enough, keep your emotions in check, and especially in the end, or in the middle, the guy catcalling her and telling her to smile. And then there's also, at the end, I don't need you to tell me who I am. I will tell you who I am.
I don't have to prove anything to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am
strong enough.
Yeah. And for this being far, far too late, I did appreciate the fact that there were lots of women around in the movie doing things. Do you know what I mean? Like, so
the older Marvel or the Lawson scientist was female, her best friend is female, and there's the daughter, and
there's, the rip-off Star Wars scene that was so, like, directly out of Star Wars, like, through the cannons and the fighter planes. This just looks, this is so bad, guys, especially now that you own Star Wars. The other fighter was female, too, in her team.
Oh, who's played by Gemma Chan?
Gemma Chan, her Kree team.
Yeah.
And so they give women stuff to do when they show capable of doing things.
Yeah. Which
I appreciated and was one of the problems with. Although they had a villain woman, which I thought was good. It's always good to have a villain woman.
And she's on an island of women.
Yeah, but when she leaves the island, then it's just...
That is true.
She's, surrounded by men.
Yeah, that is true.
She kind of, the whole Smurfette criticism.
Got it, yeah. Because I think, part of why Wonder Woman was so impactful was seeing all these female warriors fight and be badass. And, that hasn't been the case in a lot of other movies. But I guess that's true. It was very concentrated in the beginning. It wasn't throughout the whole movie.
Right. But I will say to that point, which, a lot of people brought up, like, there was nothing in Captain Marvel that was as viscerally satisfying as watching those Amazons come over the cliff. Like, there was nothing that was like, women kicking ass. Like, there just wasn't.
No, I think her fight, her fight of getting out of the handcuffs when she's captured initially, I thought that was cool. But I think there was a lot of good things that they were trying to do, and there was I think the overall messaging was good, and the sort of time skip aspect or flashbacks was different than the standard Marvel origin story movie, but then you still didn't have that not visceral. What was the word that you used?
I used visceral, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I think they tried to do a lot of good things, but at the same time, coming out of it, you still didn't have that visceral reaction of being either in love with the characters or just coming away feeling so, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah, and I credit that. Like, I think Brie Larson did a fine job, but I just thought Gal Gadot, really just owned that part of Wonder Woman. She looks, and she even does it, one of the things I really admire about her is, she's out in public as Wonder Woman. She really loves being Wonder Woman. Yeah. And she, her Twitter, and she just really loves being that role, and it kind of, the joy she takes in it really comes through in her movie, and she just, and, like I said, I think Brie Larson did a fine job, but it just didn't have that same feel to it. So I always say, the only Marvel ones I tend to watch, I'll pick them up on Netflix or Amazon or whatever they stream on, are the Captain America ones.
Oh, okay.
Because I like their fight scenes better than everybody else's.
Okay. It's been a while since I've seen the first Avenger, but I've seen Winter Soldier and I saw Civil War.
Okay. I found the fight scenes in this, so I saw it at great, amazing old theater in DC called the Uptown, which actually, it has a balcony. It's an old-fashioned theater. It has a super wide screen that, it's so big it actually curves. So it kind of gives you that IMAX effect. And between the shaky cam and the, quick cuts,
there was a fair amount of shaky cam.
On the fight scenes, I was like, you're going to give me, an epileptic attack, stop.
Yeah.
I thought they ruined pretty good fight choreography. I enjoyed the fight on the train.
That was very good. Yeah. I think the two best fights were the fight on the train and the one where she's getting out of the handcuffs from being initially captured.
Yeah. So I liked both of those scenes. Oh, you mean her like, I'm thinking of like handcuffs when she's on Earth.
Oh, sorry. No, I don't know what to call them.
Yes.
The full constraints, the full hand constraints.
Yes, on the alien ship. So then it's like, you had actually very good fight choreography, and then you totally ruined it with the camera work.
Yeah.
So that I found frustrating. Oh, and I did then find it overstuffed. Like, it was too long. The intergalactic fight where the army shows up.
You mean at the end?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was like, there was like, now we're having an extra fight with this guy, like...
Yeah.
And the missiles and stuff, and I was like, this is really dumb and unnecessarily, and the movie was long enough, like...
Yeah, there were things
have the concluding fight with Jude Law and get us out of here.
Yeah, no, that's true. And there were, it definitely, I think, overall, there could have been things that were cut and then sort of cut and restructure, and then, because... You have the Jude Law aspect, you have the scroll aspect, you have them to introduce the friend and all the flashbacks, and yeah.
Yeah. I thought the kid was good. She wasn't too cute.
Yeah, no, I did like her. Although, I did like the kid, but I wonder, part of the doing too much with it, I liked the relationship between, or that there was a relationship between Carol Danvers and Marie. But it also didn't come away feeling anything from it.
Yes. Someone pointed out the best friend scene where she has to build her back up, which, I'm all for diversity, and diversity is good, but there's a lot of, like, black people standing around having to be the champions for white people's self-esteem. That's a little... Yeah,
it's like the black sidekick character.
Yeah, and then her whole, like, having to build her back up, and my friend said that just made her eyes roll. They didn't, so I have a complaint that I dislike what I refer to as yucky love stuff, which just means like unnecessarily putting a romantic plot line in a movie where you didn't need one and it doesn't belong. If it's a romantic movie, fine, but don't add yucky love stuff. So this actually had no yucky love stuff.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, there's no love interest at all.
Nope. No romantic plotline.
Yeah. No, which is I agree, is great.
Yeah, I didn't need that. Didn't mess things up. I think it would have to put a man in.
Yeah. And it's funny also, I watched in preparation for this, I rewatched the first Iron Man movie, and watching the scene with Tony Stark and Pepper Potts when they don't get together in the movie, but they also have sort of a weird pre-love scene.
Oh, will she, won't she?
Yeah, well, should we not? And it's like, oh, so cringy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks, like, don't they always give the dudes some yucky love stuff? So why shouldn't she get yucky love stuff? I don't know. You know what I mean?
I think it's almost better.
Yeah, I think it's better without it. The yucky love stuff is always the worst.
And especially if it's supposed to be a feminist movie, that trope.
Well, our yucky love stuff could have been a woman.
That's true. Well, so it's actually funny because I was scrolling through Brie Larson's Instagram photos, and she had a picture with the female co-star that plays Maria. Mm-hmm. And the caption was, Carol and Maria forever, or something like that. And which to me suggested a possible romantic inclination that I was going into the movie with, but I didn't really see anything further. They do say over and over again that she is her best friend, but sometimes... I mean,
a queer superhero, we may have to wait 40 years for that one.
Although Wonder Woman is canonically bi.
Yeah, and she kind of alludes to that in the movie.
Yeah.
She actually doesn't shy away from that. So, overall, the critics kind of, I would say, gave the movie, reviewed the movie almost exactly the same way you did. There's historically, everyone's afraid to cross Disney because they retaliate if you give them a bad review.
Oh, yeah.
But people were like, yeah, it was meh. It was kind of formulaic, and it was what it was.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you heard about the troll reviews.
Yeah, on Rotten Tomatoes. Because, especially on Rotten Tomatoes specifically, I think the critics give it an 83% or 80% of people rated it fresh, which doesn't give the whole story, but the audience score was like 53. I can't tell, because I think the same troll thing happens with Wonder Woman and Black Panther. I don't know if it affected the audience score that much, so I'm not sure how much of the trolls play into the actual overall percentage.
My understanding was they actually tried. So I've read a couple articles about it. I think that Rotten Tomatoes, YouTube as well, like people are actually trying to de-troll things. So, they're looking for some of
like deleting comments or something?
Just, deleting the review. Yeah, deleting reviews of saying like, hey, we got, so apparently they got like 60,000 reviews before the movie even opened.
Yeah, and that's easier to delete.
Yeah.
Because you know for a fact no one's seen it.
Right. So, or trying to link accounts or people who created an account just to review the movie. There are ways that they are trying to limit that factor. And, part of me is just like, men are the worst. Like, really, men are the worst. Like, I was thinking about, like, what intelligent thing can I say about this phenomenon? And I'm just kind of like, oh, you guys are the worst. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
So,
people suck.
Feel free to have a more nuanced take on this phenomenon. Because I just was a little bit baffled, I guess. Like,
it's one of those things where I think of, I guess I assume that most actions are driven by, how much time it takes to do something. Does it need to be done? And like, this seems so unnecessary in terms of how you could be spending your time. Like, why go through this effort to just bring down a movie that you haven't seen or want to troll? But I guess I don't understand trolls, so I don't know.
So I sort of think back to way back when I started my career. I was in socially responsible investing, and one of my family members, who's very, very conservative, said like, "Oh, what? You don't want there to be oil in the world? Like, so, we didn't invest in stuff like that. That was the point of the fund." And I was like, well, it's a fund that people who don't want to invest in things like that have a place to put their money.
Yeah.
It's the perfect market solution. There's a demand for this, and we created this product.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me and was like, oh, I really don't ever, like, you can't argue with that response, generally, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
it's hard to argue with
other people expressing their own preferences.
Yeah.
And yet the troll thing seems to be saying, like, you shouldn't get to have this movie. It's like, just don't go watch it. Why does it's the fact that it exists at all makes them really angry. And it's like, why do you, like, how have you manufactured your identity to take this personally? Like,
I know, because if in the case of like genres, like not everyone likes every movie genre, but you don't need to get, you're like, I'm not angry at a particular genre, even if I don't like it. It's not for me.
Yeah. And so I guess I feel like, this movie, I mean, Wonder Woman was late. This movie's even later in terms of actually having a female lead.
Yeah, which is especially interesting for Marvel. And again, other people who read the comics might have more commentary on this, but from what I've heard and what I've read, Marvel seems to be considered the more quote-unquote diverse out of DC versus Marvel. And so it's interesting to me that Captain Marvel came so late in this MCU project when it is a studio like Marvel, and especially when you have Black Widow, who is there from almost the beginning, and I think people like. So it seems like Black Widow would have been the easy first movie or first female-led movie route they could have taken a long time ago, but didn't.
Not to mention the fact that she's played by Scarlett Johansson, who's one of the most like bankable
100%
stars,
like
far more than Brie Larson,
or even Gal Gadot.
Right.
Scarlett Johansson has, for the argument about star power, Scarlett Johansson has all of it.
Yeah. And then it's like, I know there's gonna be a backlash, and there's just so much.
A backlash to what?
To having them finally make
okay.
And it's like, you know, and then the trolls come out of the woodwork and everything. And it's just so disheartening, you know? I just feel so... I don't know I just like nothing's changed and we're not making any progress.
I know.
They finally made the frickin' movie. I should be happy. And then it's like all these like jerk guys come out and I'm like, yeah, it worked. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like it worked. The trolls, I mean, it works. It makes me feel like not that I want to silence women or give in to their sort of demands to create a world where they're the only people who are important, but it did work in making me feel like, geez. We are not accomplishing anything here, yeah.
Yeah, it's tiring. And also the pressure that female or other minority-led films face in that if it doesn't work once, it can never happen again. And so I was excited for this movie, but also worried that, you know, I don't think it was bad, but the fact that it wasn't amazing also worries me a little bit in how future executives or whoever will approach other movie plots and design.
Yeah, I agree. There was an enormous amount of pressure on poor Patty Jenkins.
100%.
And, you know, a pressure which she lived up to. And they're still like, you know, we've talked about this on other podcasts, like they're still trotting out the whole like, you know, Asian markets won't watch minority-led things. It's like, I don't know. The Fast and the Furious has been doing really well for a really long time. Like, what are you talking about?
That's true. Yeah.
So it's like, there will always be a reason why people still hate women. Like, we can't do this. Like,
women aren't bankable.
Yes. So I do.
Even if they're Scarlett Johansson and Black Widow.
But they didn't, absolutely. But they didn't try to sell her sex appeal here, which or any woman's sex appeal, really. Yeah. Which, you know, if you've got Gemma Chan there, like, you could have done. But
yeah, no, it's true. Yeah.
As an incredibly beautiful woman. So I will give Disney credit for, like, having come to the party so late. They did try to kind of get themselves out of all the things that had bungled everything in the past.
Yeah, no, it definitely, that is appreciated. And it sucks that sort of all that work went into a movie that still at least didn't leave me feeling the theaters like, my God, this was amazing. It's nice when the two can, like, you can always do these things, but you still have to make a movie that makes people leave the theater and say, oh my God, love it, or something like that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty excited for the next Wonder Woman set in the 80s.
Yeah, that'll be...
I'm not at all interested in seeing any more Captain Marvel.
Yeah, and I wonder also, I don't know if how much this would affect people's opinions of Captain Marvel, but also part of, as someone who, again, watches the MCU movies, part of, as you're going into this movie, you're also thinking about Avengers Endgame, which is so hyped right now, and also especially because did you watch both the end credit sequences?
I did. Yep, we stayed through the whole.
Okay. Yeah, so at the end, you know, she does meet with Steve Rogers and Black Widow and at the Avengers headquarters, and so the expectations going into this movie is who is Captain Marvel and how does this relate to Endgame? Mm-hmm. And I wonder if the hype from who we think Captain Marvel is an Endgame effect raised people's expectations or made it seem not as good as if it could have been a more regular standalone movie, because there's sort of this built-up idea of, we know Captain Marvel is super powerful. We know she's going to have a big part in defeating Thanos in Endgame, and all this sort of hype and expectation that surrounds it, you know, feeding into what we take away from the movie, versus if this would have been a movie that came out maybe close to after the first Iron Man or something like that, like earlier in the culmination of the MCU.
So let me make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So you're saying like the hype of the Endgame put pressure on this one, versus it could have just been one of the many?
Or I don't know if exactly like this, but you know how like when you go into a movie with really high expectations and therefore you're more likely to be disappointed.
Oh, yeah. Expectations are about all the game.
Yeah, and so I think also
So they've hyped them all up with the Endgame.
Yeah, because we know that Captain Marvel is very powerful. I think she can even rival Superman. I don't know if she can canonically defeat Superman, but I know she can definitely rival Superman. So we know she's so powerful, and so
how do we know that? Do they do crossover? Sorry,
I think just from what I've heard in discussion of power levels and
I'm just okay. So we're into good, like, the good geekdom stuff. Very cool. I just was like, wait, but they're in two separate things. Like, did they ever fight? Or
no, they are in two separate things.
Okay.
It's more like a thought question.
Got it. Yeah, she doesn't seem to be able to shoot lasers.
No.
And can she do the blow cold with her breath?
No, yeah. But I guess,
kidding.
Yeah, in terms of general power level, we know she's one of the most powerful heroes, I think in the MCU.
Right.
And a lot of the discussion around the next couple movies before Captain Marvel came out was what's going to happen in this movie, and then how does it relate to Avengers Endgame. And so I wonder if thinking about all that affected people's perspectives and my own perspective of this movie versus if it had been released 8-10 years ago.
I mean, again, I think if it had been released 8-10 years ago, then you wouldn't have, this would have looked fresher. For better or for worse. Like, they have, by imposing the cinematic universe on all of these, they have imposed a conformity on them that they can't be really wildly different, so that when they come together in the Avengers movie, you're not so tonally off with, like, the character. And so you've gotten to a point where just the overall feel, the color palette is real, like, it's exactly the same in every movie. I mean, people make the joke about, like, can someone turn a light on with the DCU movies? Like, they're so freaking dark. So dark. You can't even see anything, which is admittedly really annoying. But it's like the color palette,
they are brighter.
But it's the same. Like, it's because they're all gonna have to come together and stand in a photo, and, like, their suits have to match up. Like, there's just a sameness versus that gets imposed, and then there's just a real lack of originality or creativity. Although I will say, for my money, Ryan Coogler managed to do a much better job with that Black Panther than they did with Captain Marvel.
I agree, I think, with parts of what you're saying.
Okay.
Because I do think that while most Marvel movies do follow a general formula, I do think that there are key stylistic differences with particular movies, particularly Thor Ragnarok and also the Guardians of the Galaxy. Right now it's 2, but it will become 3.
Okay.
But a friend of mine that I saw the movie with made, not the exact same comment, but a similar comment, that this movie was, I think it was more about plot versus style, that this movie is sort of limited by the fact that it's the 21st movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe versus if it had been the second or the third or part of or separate of the MCU.
Yeah. I guess everybody has their own sameness that they can. To me, this is just like, it's so many.
Yeah, I guess
I can't watch all of them. Like, I just can't.
No, it's true. I guess if you don't enjoy the formula, even if it's done well, you may not enjoy. That's why people like specific genres. I'm of the opinion that I don't mind cliches as long as they're done well.
That's a good way to put it, actually.
Because some cliches are, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but some cliches they feel overdrawn versus some cliches can work.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think I have a tolerance for it in certain genres and not in others. And this one's just not for me. I did actually, a couple of, like, kind of last points of the things that I did appreciate. They did sort of have that silly battle at the end, but there was not, epic world destruction, building, tumbling stuff, which is overplayed. And the death toll was pretty low.
Yeah, I was almost surprised while watching it when the other Kree ships left, Yeah, because they were building it up, and I was like, oh, we've got, so many minutes left. How is this all going to get solved? And then they sort of all leave because they're scared.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the criticisms that I've made about this whole genre is just, like, it's very violent and it's sold to kids. Like, I kind of don't love selling kids on violence. But this one actually, the body count was pretty low. And there were a lot of really good fight scenes that just didn't end in death. Like,
yeah.
And I was like, I appreciate it.
This is sort of I meant to bring this up earlier, but
okay.
I think part of also why I wasn't a fan of Brie Larson's acting was that it felt very flat, one note, versus Wonder Woman, who had, I think, more layers, and therefore that's why I liked that style. Yeah.
Yeah.
That I thought Brie Larson's acting was, and it could have been direction, maybe not her specifically, but that it was flatter. And then in comparing that to Wonder Woman felt like she had more layers with her personality and development, which I thought this movie was missing. Because also, so then there's the acting portion of that and the personality behind it, but also that, well, I think there is a theme of, I think Brie Larson, that Captain Marvel does grow in the movie. I think it wasn't a ton of character development in that she's powerful at the beginning and she's still powerful at the end. There's obviously stuff changes because she realized that she's being hindered the whole time from the beginning, but her, like, besides her finding out more about her life as a human, there's not a lot of internal character development, at least how I perceived it.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things they were trying to do, to build on your point, is it's a very old-fashioned version of feminism that says, which actually What Men Want kind of tackled, like, you have to be, the only way they're going to accept you is as one of the guys. Like, you have to be like a guy. For guys to accept you. And Wonder Woman lets her be a woman, like, coo at a baby and like clothes and have a love interest and still be able to be super tough, totally warrior when she can have all of the elements that she doesn't have to cover up any aspect of femininity in order to prove herself to the guys. And I think you're right. And I think that Disney didn't have the courage to make a fully realized woman, because then they were afraid that all the guys were, oh my God, she's crying. We can't have that,
Yeah, and going back to your point earlier about, I do agree that the starting off very hard and emotions are good by the end of the movie is definitely a cliche. I almost wanted more of that because it felt so flat.
Right.
That I wanted more emotional development, or at least emotional development done better.
Right, yeah. And that's also kind of the complaint of having a million movies, is like they do kind of sell out the character development. You have one movie that's like the origin story that usually get character development, which I agree they had very little in this one, and then they never kind of go back to that again, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, sequel be low on that. That's, I think that's a really good point, and I think I have sort of a love-hate relationship with Disney. Like, often they are the big guys, and they're often at the forefront of this type of things. This time they were not. And they,
in terms of adding different types of characters?
In terms of selling diversity and, having positive messages. In terms of, heck, there was the comment about somebody says, oh, have you been to planet C53, which is Earth? And someone's like, yeah, it's an S-hole.
Yeah.
I was like, pointed political commentary they threw in there. But they are such a juggernaut these days, and they are so safe. They seem, just having the Marvel universe, like buying up all these major franchises and just churning out the same movie over and over again. Like, they've gotten kind of cowardly, and they're not willing to take risks to do more transgressive or more interesting. And that's, I think the cowardly side of Disney came out here where they weren't really willing to push the envelope and make something unique or original out of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if they've done this as much in other movies, but yeah, the only unique thing was sort of the twist at the end. Well, I guess that's not even unique anyways. The structure didn't feel as formulaic, but it was still... Mm-hmm. But yeah, I agree, overall. Yes.
I mean, just having a cat is great.
Yeah.
Cat lovers everywhere. So, the social impact score, you're sort of grading it as a movie and as having a social impact. It's a sort of combined scale of 1 to 10 in terms of, like, the movies and worlds forever has changed by how impactful this movie was.
Yeah.
So, where would you?
Probably definitely on the lower side. Unfortunately, I had a lot of personal hype going into this movie. I was very excited, but I think I'll probably give it like a 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm at a 3. Like, they let DC get ahead of them on this one.
For once.
Yeah. And
once DC made the better movie.
and they absolutely did in almost every aspect, to be frank. Like, yeah, so, and there's a certain amount of cowardice involved in this one for me. But they did it. They had a woman at the center of fun. So.
And there was a lot of good
they got a few
intention, but you still need to make a good movie.
Yeah. Recommendations?
I think I'll go with, it's not new, but it is superhero related. If anyone likes anime out there, or wants to transition into anime and likes superhero films or movies or TV shows, there's a series called My Hero Academia. And it doesn't star a woman, but there's a lot of great female characters. One that I'm wearing on my shirt right now that you can't see. But lots of it does a good job of having lots of great characters with lots of great development. And so if you already like anime, definitely check it out. If you like superhero type content and want to get into anime, definitely check it out.
Great. I have 2 recommendations this week because I heard 2 outstanding things that I can't get out of my head. And in honor of Captain Marvel, Women's History Month, I am recommending the podcast Call Your Girlfriend. And this episode, they got a request, and even the fact that they got a request kind of annoys them. So the episode, it's the Women's March, or Why the Only Drama Problem is No Drama at All. And they discuss the strain of anti-Semitism and how they feel about that in the Women's March, and really just sort of deconstruct why can't we all just get along is really not a legitimate position to take. And
I mean, I feel like that's the same logic of like, I don't see color.
Yeah, exactly. But, like really they say they weren't going to do this, but then the email made them so mad that they were like, fine, we'll do it. And it's very well researched and really well done. And, obviously anti-Semitism is an issue near and dear to my heart, and it has been surfacing more and more lately. So I was just really glad to hear them kind of take it on and deal with that issue and it's of this whole Ilhan. So the other one I want to recommend, and this is really hilarious because, just in case you guys think I'm too cerebral, which nobody does, but I listened to this podcast called Fat Mascara. It's totally on like beauty and skincare. Really, really great stuff. But they had this woman on, I guess she was a former Real Housewife, to talk all about vaginal rejuvenation. And I cannot recommend to you enough. And I want you to promise me as a listener, if you've ever seen a commercial for Viagra or Cialis, that you will run out and do your research on these clinics. Check both of those things out. And we hope you enjoyed this episode of Movies That Matter. Leave us a review. Please on iTunes. Check our website out, podcast.com. We've got links to the things we've discussed. Check our Twitter account to find out what movie we're going to overanalyze next. We're at Movies Matter Pod. And remember, movies matter.
And so do you.
We'll see you next time.